Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa amma ba'd. So we have finished the discussion on the marfu' hadith, and we looked at different types of marfu' hadith, and also we looked at hadith which is marfu' hukman. We also looked at the different alfaz and the sigha that the sahabis use. That is also and what is the status of those. Now we go on to the second one, which is the mawquf. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أو ينتهي غاية الإسناد إلى الصحابي كذلك أي مثل ما تقدم في كون اللفظ يقتضي التصريح بأن المنقول هو من قول الصحابي أو من فعله أو من تقريره. Or the second type, we're talking about number one was here. إما أن ينتهي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and then many pages later he says أو ينتهي غاية الإسناد إلى الصحابي, or the isnad ends with the sahabi in a similar fashion. In what fashion? مثل ما تقدم, in the manner that we have already discussed. في كون اللفظ يقتضي التصريح, that the word requires a clear indication that what is manqul, what is narrated, is from the Sahabi's words or from his fa'al or from his tacit approvals, right? That there needs to be tasrih. Yep. The عن علي رضي الله تعالى عنه قال, or قال عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله تعالى عنه, there needs to be tasrih, whether it's his فعل, it is his تقرير, or it is his قول. ولا يجيء فيه جميع ما تقدم بل معظمه. So he's basically doing sharh on his own ibarat, and he says not everything that has passed in the discussion on marfu' will come here, بل معظمه, but most of it. والتشبيه لا تشترط فيه المساواة من كل جهة, and tashbih does not necessitate that there has to be equality and sameness from all perspective. Yeah. Now remember that I don't know if I mentioned this, but Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani, by tabi'ah, by his nature, he's actually a poet. Okay. Also by training he's a muhaddis, but by tabi'ah he's actually a poet, and he's got a lot of diwans of poetry as well, which are not very famous, but he does. So he, like some fuqaha who don't really know the language correctly, or they do know the language but they don't have the the softness of the language. It's very instrumental. Imam Ibn Hajar is very nuanced in this. So he's basically alluding us to a rule of Arabic, that just because there is tashbih, simile does not necessitate that there has to be from every single aspect somebody has to be same. So when I say Umar kal Asad, doesn't necessarily mean that Umar has to have four legs. Yeah. So, but still the tashbih is correct without it being four legs. So similarly, this is what he says. He says, أو ينتهي غاية الإسناد إلى الصحابي كذلك. So all of this here that we've got is he's basically doing tashrih of what he means by kazalika. He says kazalika means in the same manner, but not everything of the marfu will apply here, because just because we have given a simile does not necessarily mean that the simile has to apply in everything. So what does not apply here? He says the hukman does not apply. So remember we said that a sahabi, even if a sahabi narrates a hadith, but if it is hukman, it can be hukman a hadith with the three conditions: that the sahabi is not known to have taken from the Israeliyat, it is not something which is ijtihadi, and the third one is it is not something which can be explained away by lugha. If those three conditions meet, then we say that this hadith is hukman marfu'. But when it comes to qawl sahabi, we only take the tasrih of the sahabi to be the qawl of the Sahabi. We don't actually accept anything which is qawl of Sahabi or fi'l of Sahabi or taqrir of Sahabi hukman. Yeah, there's no such thing. So this hukman is specifically for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam we are extrapolating laws. So this is what he's saying. ولا يجيء فيه جميع ما تقدم بل معظمه والتشبيه لا تشترط فيه المساواة من كل جهة. Does that make sense?
Yes.
ولما كان هذا ولما كان هذا المختصر شاملا لجميع أنواع علوم الحديث استردت منه إلى تعريف السحابي ما هو. So he says when this mukhtasar is inclusive of all of the types of ulum al-hadith, all of the types of ulum al-hadith, I decided to explain istarattu minhu. I decided to explain also the ta'arif of the definition of the Sahabi, ma huwa, who is he? فقلت. So he's basically saying, somebody might say, well, you don't need to define a Sahabi, this is a mukhtasar. But he's saying, well, since I've decided to kind of be exhaustive and inclusive of all of the different types of ulum al-hadith, then I might as well define what the Sahabi is. One of the things you have to understand is when we talk about anwa or ulum al-hadith, right? By anwa ulum al-hadith, we don't really mean that there are different sciences. All we basically mean is the 165 chapters that Imam Ibn Salah has mentioned. This is what we mean by anwa ulum al-hadith. You know, they're not different sciences. They're actually, in fact, some of the latest stuff, al-Mu'talaf wal-Muftaraq and all of these stuff, these are actually names of books written by Khatib al-Baghdadi. And we just turn them into a type itself. So that's just by and by. فقلت, I said, وهو من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مؤمنا به. The Sahabi is the one who has met the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم believing in him. ومات على الإسلام, and he died on Islam. ولو تخللت ردة في الأصح, even though if that was interrupted with by ridda, apostasy, according to the most sahih opinion. So what is the condition? Who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, believed in him, died on Islam, and what happens in the middle, whether he has done takhallalat ridda, whether he became a non-Muslim or not, doesn't really matter. Um, it's like zakat. Once you're sahibun nisab, then it doesn't matter within that year, whatever kind of money comes, you still need to do 1 year from the time that you're sahibun nisab and not from the new money. So similarly here, as long as the person has seen the Prophet ﷺ, became a Muslim and then died in Islam, it doesn't matter what happened in between. Yeah. This is actually the Shafi'i position. Imam Mullah Ali Qari rahmatullahi alayhi, who is the Sharih of this Nukhbat al-Fikar, Nuzhat al-Nazar, he's the Sharih of Nuzhat al-Nazar. He takes Allama Qasim ibn Qutlubgha and Allama Ibn al-Hanbali, the author of Qaf al-Athar, to task. So if you want to kind of see a Hanafi version of the Nuzhat al-Nazar, then the book that you need to study is called Qaf al-Athar, whose name confusingly is Ibn al-Hanbali, but he's actually Hanafi. Yeah. So Ibn al-Hanbali's Qaf al-Athar, the example of that will be like if you study the Muwatta of Imam Malik, and then you study the Muwatta of Imam Muhammad, the Muwatta of Imam Muhammad is nothing more than the Muwatta of Imam Malik bi riwayat Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani. What Imam Muhammad does is he makes his notes and he makes his dissension from Imam Malik, saying, and according to Abu Hanifa, it's like this, and Imam Abu Hanifa doesn't agree with this. Right, so he puts his notes. So similarly, the Qaful Athar is like a commentary on the Nuzha, and then also he gives the Hanafi positions there as well. Similarly, Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani's student Qasim ibn Qutlubgha, who himself is a muhaddith, is a faqih. Qasim ibn Qutlubgha is also the sharih of Quduri. He's also the sharih of Hidayah. He's also the sharih of Sahih al-Bukhari. Has also written a sharah on the sharah on the Nuzhat al-Nazar. And in there, he does a lot of istidrak on Hafiz ibn Hajar, and he says, well, he made a mistake here, and this isn't. It's like this. He's actually quite a staunch critic. However, in this particular instance, he did not mention any of the Hanafi position. And Imam Mullah Ali Qari rahmatullahi alayhi takes both of them to task, and he says it is ajib that the Sharih, the Hanafi Sharih, and specifically he's talking about Qasim ibn Qutlubgha, they did not pinpoint that this is a Shafi'i and this is not according to the Hanafi madhab. So yes, according to the Hanafis, ولو ridda is muhbitul a'mal. So if a person becomes a murtad and then he becomes a Muslim again, but by that time the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has died, then this person is no longer a Sahabi. So then, because of these differences in definition and aqidah, you will have that will definitely have a difference in basically the mas'ala. Yeah.
Mm.
For example, Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah. Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah was a katib of Wahi. He had a crisis of faith during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he became a murtad. And then only after the Prophet ﷺ has passed away, he did tawbah, and he was involved in the fatah and became a Muslim and was involved in doing fatah of Egypt with Sayyidina Amr ibn As. The Shafi'i's
Mm.
Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani rahmatullahi alayh includes him in the names of the those who have in Al-Isaba, those who are from the Sahabis, but the Ahnaf don't accept him to be from the Sahabi. So obviously, because of this definitional difference, you will get a difference in, the usul as well, and the furu'. Yeah. Now what he's going to do is he's going
So,
to do sharh.
Mara, quick question. So if the person becomes a murtad and then by the time he does tawbah and accepts it, comes back into the fold of Islam, the Prophet ﷺ has passed away. So according to the Hanafis, he loses the Sahabi status. What if he becomes returns to Islam during the life of the Prophet but never meets the Prophet again? Is that a condition somehow where he has to meet the Prophet again to regain that status?
So Imam Ibn Hajar here, he basically talks about al-liqa. What does liqa mean? وَالْمُرَادُ بِاللِّقَاءِ مَا هُوَ أَعَمُّ. It is much more general than just meeting. من المجالسة والمماشات ووصول أحدهما إلى الآخر وإن لم يكالمه ويدخل فيه رؤية أحدهما الآخر سواء كان ذلك بنفسه أم بغيره. So he's basically saying, well, if he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or if he sat in the majlis of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or some way he got to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is enough. It doesn't actually need to kind of meet him. The mujalasa, sit in the same majlis, wal mumasha, walk in the same gathering, or one of them reaches the other, wa illam yukalimu, even if they do not touch, even if they do not talk, wa yadkhul fihi. Similarly, ru'yatu ahadihim al-akhar, one seeing the other, سواء كان ذلك بنفسه, whether that is by himself, and بغيره, or someone else making him see. So this is the example of this is like a child. A child is being carried by the father, and the father is the one that is making him see the Sahabi. So I think they keep it quite broad, as long as he had some kind of uh, um, some kind of close contact with the Prophet ﷺ, because all of these things are talking about close contact, isn't it? Mujalasa, mumasha,
Yeah.
or ru'ya. Some kind of close contact, even though if they did not talk, even if they did not physically meet one to one. All of this comes under suhbah. Yeah, does that make sense?
It does. It does. And this might be not even applicable. Maybe it hasn't actually ever happened. But in theory, if somebody, say for example, he was in Medina, saw the Prophet, met the Prophet in whatever circumstances, is considered a Sahabi, turned away from Islam, and then migrated somewhere else, and then accepted Islam during the life of the Prophet, but he never came back to see him again. Would he still be considered a Sahabi?
So according to the Ahnaf, according to the Ahnaf, we need to basically see what the rules of liqa is, but I don't think according to the Ahnaf, he will be considered a Sahabi. According to the Shafis, he will be considered a Sahabi.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
because according to the Ahnaf, the irtidad is muhbitul amal, muhbitul suhba, and therefore he needs to basically maintain that suhba again. And the reason why I mention this is because there are many people who, and later on he's going to talk about this, the mukhadrameen like Abu Uthman al-Nahdi, who basically found Jahiliyyah and found Islam and lived after the Prophet. They were Muslim during the time of the Prophet, but they never met the Prophet. These are not seen as Sahabis, these are Tabi'is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So we have somebody like Ubaidullah ibn Jahsh, former husband of Habiba radiallahu ta'ala anha. He became a Christian in Habasha during the migration. Similarly, Abdullah ibn Khatal became a murtad, went to Mecca, and Prophet gave order to kill him. Similarly, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, Maqis ibn Sababa, Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah, Ash'as ibn Qais from Kinda became a murtad during the time of Abu Bakr. Radiallahu ta'ala, Ibn Hajar mentions him afterwards. During the time of Abu Bakr, became a murtad, and then Abu Bakr, he was captured by Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, who Islam was presented to him. He became a Muslim, and Abu Bakr actually married his sister to him. He fought alongside Ali in the Battle of Sittin, died 40 days after, and his janazah was led by Hassan ibn Ali radiallahu ta'ala. There is ikhtilaf on whether a person he became a Muslim and he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam dead, meaning that they were doing the janazah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam dead. Whether that will be seen as suhba or not, majority of the scholars they say that is not seen as you know suhba. Then there is another question that arises here, that if these former Sahabis who did not become Muslim, like Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, or we know Walid ibn Mughira became a Muslim on day of Fatah Makkah, right? He became a Muslim and he also narrates hadith. Yeah. And then later on, he went to the Byzantine and then he became a Christian, right? Whether the hadiths that he narrated, whether they're accepted or not. So that's the question. We find some of these hadiths in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, where Imam Ahmad in the isnad narrates from Walid ibn Mughira. So there's an entire ikhtilaf around that as well, which is quite interesting. We're not going to go into that now. Yeah. Now, Imam Ibn Hajar now he's going to analyze this definition of his وَمَنْ لَقِيَ النَّبِيَّ صلى الله عليه وسلم مُؤْمِنًا بِهِ وَمَاتَ عَلَى الْإِسْلَامِ وَلَوْ تَخَلَّتْ رِدَّةٌ فِي الْأَصَحِّ. So he says وَالتَّعْبِيرُ بِاللُّقِيِّ أَوْلَى مِنْ قَوْلِ بَعْضِهِمْ الصَّحَابِيُّ مَنْ رَأَى النَّبِيَّ صلى الله عليه وسلم. So he's basically saying that my ta'bir of liqa is better than min qawli ba'dihim, than some words of some of them who says as-sahabi. The sahabi is the one who saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لأنه يخرج ابن أم مكتوم ونحوه من العميان وهم صحابة بلا تردد. Because if you say man ra'a an-nabiy sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then that excludes Abdullah ibn Maktoum and other blind ashab who definitely, without a doubt, were sahabis. But I think this is not a very strong argument, because the same argument can be made about Imam Ibn Hajar, which you made. That do they need to meet again? And then Imam Ibn Hajar is explaining himself. No, 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 no. By liqa, by meeting, I mean it's more general, it's more generic. It's that's just a word, but actually it's more shumul. So somebody can say as-sahabi man ra'a an-nabiy sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can say, well, no, no. By ru'ya, I mean general. But it also includes those who can't see and those who are in mujalasa and mumasha. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So really, it's really no bother here actually, because Imam Ibn Hajar is explaining himself. The person who says Mandra Nabi Sallam can also explain himself, unless he basically believes that only if you see the Prophet Sallam with your eyes, right? Then you have to say, oh, what about you see the Prophet Sallam in ru'ya? What about if you see the Prophet Sallam in kashf? There's all of those questions come up as well.
Mhm.
The next واللقي في هذا التعريف كالجنس وقولي مؤمنا به كالفصل. So here he is basically doing mantiq, right?
Mhm.
And in mantiq, you basically have two things. One, where is it gone? You have jins,
Mhm.
fasl.
Mhm.
Just 1 minute. What I need to do is bring this program up so that it doesn't mess up. Okay. Jins, fasl, and come on.
Mhm.
No, yeah, my whiteboard has gone, um, because the university. This is a university laptop, and the university does not allow you to download any kind of softwares. So I can't access it at the moment. So I have to use the web version, which is not. You can see that it's messing around. So n- jins basically is what in English is known as the genus.
Mhm.
How many are- Let's see if this works better. Sorry about this. Oh, jins, fasal. It's not brilliant, but it's good. So jins is basically what we call the generic type. The generic. Fasal is the specific, and no is basically the resultant type. We just call it type. So, for example, if you got hayawan,
Mhm.
natiq equals insan. Insan. Hayawan is jins. Natiq is fasal, and this is no. It's the naw' is the resultant of the jins and fasl. So haywan is a generic category. You can have so many different types of
Right.
things that can be included in haywan. That's why it's called jins. Natiq is a fasl. Fasl basically means separation. It separates a particular, specifies a particular type of haywan as opposed to others. So when we say haywan natiq, which is insan, we are basically saying, well, it's not haywan sahil. It's not a neighing animal, i.e. a horse. It's not haywan something else. It's not haywan muftaris. It's not a haywan of prey. So by saying natiq, we specify it. So Imam Ibn Hajar is saying here, when I say اللقي في هذا التعريف كالجنس وقول مؤمنا به كالفصل. So if we go back to this, اللقي is jins, and then jins, and then مؤمنا به or مؤمنا, then plus bihi. This is fasl 1, and this is, can you see this?
Yes.
This is fasl 2. What that basically means is when you say al-luqi, right, then what is the jins here? Means that, and does it mean that man laqiya an-nabiy sallallahu alaihi wasallam, anyone who meets the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or anyone who sits with the Prophet, or anyone who talks with the Prophet, or anyone who sees the Prophet? So if you Abu Jahl, or Walid ibn Mughira, Umayyah ibn Hisham, all the kuffars, right? Would they become Sahabi? So in liqa, everyone comes in. So by saying mu'minan, right, that's a fasal, meaning that no, only those who meet him whilst believing in him. Do you see that's a specific?
Right.
Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you say bihi, mu'minan bihi, as opposed to anyone who meets him believing bil ghair. Like for example, the Christians and the Jews, they do believe, but they believe in other prophets and not the prophet. So that's the fasal too. Does that make sense? So he's basically doing a mantiqi dissection of his own ibara. واللقي في هذا التعريف كالجنسي. Luqi in this ibarat, in this definition, is like jins. وقولي مؤمنا به كالفصل. And my saying مؤمنا به is the specification. يخرج من حصل له اللقاء المذكور لكن في حال كونه كافرا. All of those who have met the aforementioned conditions of meeting are excluded whilst they have done this when they are kafirs. So so it's excluding kafirs out of that. I mean, this is a very it's an obvious thing, right? But I mean,
Right.
he just decided to mention that. وقول به فصل ثاني, and his word به مؤمنا به is the second specification. يخرج من لقيه مؤمنا لكن بغيره من الأنبياء. It excludes, this fasl excludes those who met the Prophet ﷺ in the state of Iman. However, their Iman is on another Nabi, not the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لكن هل يخرج من لقيه مؤمنا بأنه سيبعث ولم يدرك البعث فيه نزل. So have you understood the second fasl, that Christians and Jews, إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والنصارى والصابئين من آمن منهم بالله واليوم الآخر. So the Jews and Christians, whilst remaining Jews and Christians, if they met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even somebody can say they still have iman, but not mu'minan bihi, mu'minan bi Isa, or mu'minan bi Musa, or mu'minan bi
Right.
Dawuda. Does that mean? So you have to be believing in the Prophet as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Then there is another opinion. لكن هل يخرج من لقيه مؤمنا. So this fasl mu'minan bihi, does it exclude those who met the Prophet ﷺ in the state of Iman? Mu'minan bihi, does it exclude those who have in the state of mu'minan, believing, so not in the state of Iman, believing bi annahu sayub'ath, that the Prophet ﷺ will certainly be sent as a prophet, walam yudrik al-bi'tha, but they did not live to see the messengership. Fihi nadharun. So such as Buhayra al-Rahib, such as Waraqa ibn Nawfal,
Right.
can we say that they are Sahabas? Now, there's another question, is whether they are believers. Obviously, if they believed that, and they believed in the previous prophet at that time, and they didn't do shirk, then they are believers. But the question here is not about whether they are believers or not. The question is about whether they are Sahabi, right? So
Right.
obviously, a Sahabi is the one who sees the prophet. Okay, um, and if the Prophet ﷺ hasn't come out yet, then if these people are seeing him, then would they be counted as Sahabi? That basically hinges on another discussion, Aqidah discussion, as to, it was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam a prophet even when he was a child, or and that at the age of 40 he just manifested himself, or did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mission and prophethood and nabuwah, he gained this new title at the age of 40? There are different ikhtilaf on this. Some people say the Prophet ﷺ was always a prophet. It's not that at the age of 40 he got he got the mission, but he was still a prophet. He got nubuwwah, but he was always a nabi. And this is why in Makkah at the age of 25, when the Prophet ﷺ used to walk, the Hajar and the Shajar used to do salam to the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. So that hinges on that ikhtilaf, whether they were actually seeing a prophet or not. Majority of the scholars, this then takes the discussion from the realm of kind of like legal discussions to more kind of Sufi, Tasawwufi discussions. Majority of the scholars say, although these people, Waraq ibn Nawfal and Buhayra al-Rahib, may have been Muslims, but surely they're not Sahabi. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. So some scholars would say, like, there is a minority of scholars that would say that people like Waraqa ibn Nawfal and Buhayra were Sahabi.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Because that depends on their definition of the prophet when he became a prophet.
Got it.
وقولي ومات على الإسلام فصل ثالث يخرج من ارتد بعد أن لقيه مؤمنا ومات على الردة كعبد الله بن جحش وابن خطل. Right. So here he says من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مؤمنا به ومات على الإسلام. So من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مؤمنا, first fasal. So لقي النبي is jins, مؤمنا به first fasal, مؤمنا first fasal is excluding the kuffar who met him, bihi is second fasal, excluding Christians and Jews and others of other faith, and mata ala al-Islam is the third fasal, which is excluding those who died on ridda. Yeah, ومات على الإسلام. Those, for example, Abdullah ibn Khatal, مات كعبيد الله ibn Jahsh. This is Habiba's husband, former husband, and after Ubaidullah ibn Jahsh left, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married Habiba radiallahu ta'ala anha, and then Ibn Khatal. The Prophet ﷺ said about Ibn Khatal that even if Ibn Khatal was hanging onto the cover of the Kaaba on the day of Fatah Makkah, then He's one of those people who the Prophet ﷺ excluded from not harming him. He said, harm him if you find him. Right? وقولي ولو تخللت ردة أي بين لقيه له مؤمنا به وبين موته على الإسلام فإن اسم الصحبة باق له سواء رجع إلى الإسلام في حياته صلى الله عليه وسلم أم بعده سواء لقيه ثانيا أم لا. That answers your question for the Shafi'is, Hussein. My saying ولو تخللت ردة i.e. ridda between him meeting the Prophet ﷺ whilst believing in him and between that person's death, not the Prophet's death, وَبَيْنَ مَوْتِهِ عَلَى الْإِسْلَامِ, and between that person's death in Islam, the suhbah still remains with that person, irrelevant of whether he returned back to Islam in the life of the Prophet or after, and irrelevant of whether he saw the Prophet ﷺ laqiya with all his iterations a second time or not. Yeah, because according to them, ridda is not muhbitus suhbah. Although ridda is muhbitul amal for everyone, but because the daraja and sharaf of suhbah is so great, say ridda is not muhbitus suhbah if that person dies on Islam. Yeah,
makes sense.
وقولي في الأصح إشارة إلى الخلاف في المسألة, and my opinion في الأصح وهو من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مؤمنا به ومات على الإسلام ولو تخللت ردة في الأصح. He says my saying al-asah is doing ishara that there is an ikhtilaf on this, and but this is the sahih position. Now Mullah Ali Qari takes Qasim ibn Qutb, the sharih of the Hanafi sharih of this book, and the student of Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani, to task that fil asahi Mullah Ali Qasim ibn Qutb, he's attributed that to the definition of the Sahabi, meaning that this is the most sahih opinion about what a Sahabi is. There may be other opinions, for example, man ra'a an-nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Yeah, there may be other definitions, but this is the most sahih opinion about what a Sahabi is. This is what the istidrak of Mullah Ali Qari on Qasim ibn Qutb. Mullah Ali Qari says that's completely wrong. It's not talking about what the Sahih definition is about the Sahabi. Definition of Sahabi is talking about the Sahih opinion according to him vis-a-vis Ridda, and not the entire definition. Does that make sense? Whether Ridda is muhbitul suhbah, muhbitul amal or not, Ibn Hajar says this is the Sahih opinion, and that's what this is associated. The muta'alliq of fi is takhallat, this whole thing takhallalat ridda, and not the definition. He takes Qasim ibn Qutb to task for misunderstanding this sentence. Yeah. لكن هل يخرج ومات على الإسلام وقولي في الأصح إشارة إلى الخلاف في المسألة ويدل على رجحان الأول. There is ishara that there is khilaf on this particular issue of ridda being muhbitul amal or not. And Imam Ibn Hajar now giving his dalil why he believes that his opinion, which is that the ridda is not muhbitul amal, is the most dominant opinion. ويدل على رجحان الأول, the first position, which is his opinion, قصة الأشعث ibn Qais. The story of Ash'ath ibn Qais, I told you he was from Kinda. became a murtad during the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, who was captured by Abu Bakr, became a Muslim, and Abu Bakr gave his sister Farwa to marry. فإنه كان ممن ارتد وأوتي به إلى أبي بكر الصديق أسيرا. He was one of those who became a murtad. He was brought to Abu Bakr Siddiq as a prisoner. فعاد إلى الإسلام. فقابل منه. He reverted back to Islam. Abu Bakr accepted Islam. وزوجه أخته, and he married his sister to him, Farwa. So these people were ajib. Yeah, these people were ajib, right? They were so simple. Their lifestyle was like, in the sense, it was very, very simple. Like now, if somebody was to kind of become a murtad, right? He was a Muslim, became a murtad, and then he becomes a Muslim. Would I marry my sister to him? Would I marry my daughter? I would think like 3 times, 10 times. Oh, this guy was a murtad, and I'm not going to marry my daughter. But Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, who accepted Islam and gave his sister. these, these people were very, very, their iman and their lifestyle was very simple. These kind of, a woman got divorced before she finished her iddah. She basically got marriage proposals. There's an entire rulings on not to basically do khitbah ala khitbati akhi, not to do khitbah during, because people were marrying and divorcing was adi. It wasn't such a big deal. ولم يتخلف أحد عن ذكره في الصحابة. This is the دليل that Ash'as ibn Qais became a murtad, and then he became Muslim, and not only became a Muslim, Abu Bakr married his sister to him, and no one left his name out from the mention of Sahaba. ولا عن تخريج أحاديثه في المسانيد وغيرها, and no one left out his ahadith in the books of ahadith. Is that okay?
Even the Hanafis didn't leave it out?
No, I think Imam Ibn Hajar is specifically talking about the muhaddithun, and primarily most of the muhaddithun are Shafi'i. Yeah, Shafi'i and Maliki.
Got it.
And Shafi'i and Hanbali. Yeah. Tanbihan. Two things to be aware of. Number one, لا خفاء برجحان رتبة من لازمه صلى الله عليه وسلم وقاتل معه أو قتل تحت رأيته على من لم يلازمه. There is no hiding of the privileging and the preponderance of the status of the Sahabi who remained in the company of the Prophet ﷺ and fought alongside him, or has been martyred under his banner, or over those who did not keep to his company, أو لم يحضر معه مشهدا, or were not present with him in any incident, وعلى من كلمه يسيرا, and above those who only spoke to him a little bit, أو ماشاه قليلا, or only who walked with him a little bit, أو رآه على بعد, or only saw him from far away, أو في حال الطفولية وإن كان شرف الصحبة حاسنا للجميع, or saw him in whilst they were children. Like, for example, Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr was only 2 years old when the Prophet ﷺ passed away. وإن كان شرف الصحبة حاسلا للجميع, even though the virtue of suhbah is for all of them. However, if we were to categorize them, the Sahabis, then those who were close to the Prophet ﷺ, fought with him alongside him, died under his banner, kept to his company, are much more privileged over those who seldom did that or were small. Okay, now theoretically speaking, you've heard, you've read this, that according to the Hanafis, when there is a difference of opinion in the riwayat of two Sahabis and they're contradicting each other, we will look at the riwayat of the faqih, and then we'll look at the riwayat of the ghair faqih. If a riwayat goes against the aql, goes against qiyas, then we will look at the sahabi if the Sahabi is faqih, then we will accept it even if it goes against the qiyas. But if the Sahabi is not faqih, then we will privilege the qiyas over daruratan over the khabr wahid. You've come across that, right? So here
Yes.
we have a hierarchy of Sahabis, faqih and غير faqih. In hadith science, there's actually 12 hierarchies amongst the Sahabis. We only have two amongst the Ahnaf.
Interesting.
There's actually 12 hierarchies amongst the Sahabas. The Ashab Badr, the Ashab Ridwan, the Ashab Uhud, the Bay'atul Ridwan. So there's actually 12 categories. Those who were in Fatih Mecca, etc., etc. Those who went to Habasha and died early. So this, if you were to categorize them according to that, then there are actually 12 categories. And theoretically, it's theoretical because if there's supposed to be a contradiction between the riwayat of two sahabis, then you're supposed to, providing that everything else isnad is the same, then you're supposed to privilege the sahabi who is in a higher rutbah than the sahabi who's in a low rutbah. But in my kind of experience, I've only found that to be theoretical. Nobody actually follows that through. And a lot of the stuff that we read is very theoretical, and it's not actually followed through. Yeah.
Interesting.
ومن ليس له منهم سماع منه فحديثه مرسل من حيث الرواية. Then the question arises, what about those Sahabis who did not hear anything from the Prophet ﷺ? They say, okay, these people are still Sahaba. They saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but they don't have anything, any sima', any riwayat from the Prophet. So, وَمَنْ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْهُمْ سِمَاعٌ مِنْهُ فَحَدِيثُهُ مُرْسَلٌ مِنْ حَيْثُ الرِّوَايَةِ. And then those who do not have a sima' from the Prophet sallallahu, an audition from the Prophet sallallahu, maybe no audition at all, like for example, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr might have been too small to remember anything, or some audition and then others didn't. فحديثه مرسل من حيث الرواية. As from the point of view of transmission, the hadith is mursal, but this is called marasil sahabi or mursalatu sahabi. And we have said mursalatu sahabi is accepted. The marasil of the sahabi is accepted. One sahabi, a younger sahabi, like for example, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha might say, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كذا وكذا, but she might be narrating from her father, but she's missing out her father. And she's saying Qala Nabi Sallallahu directly. The Mursalat of the Sahaba, although the Mursal is a weak hadith, according to the Muhaddithin, but the Mursalat of Sahabi is accepted because as-Sahaba kulluhum adul. Yeah. وهم مع ذلك معدودون في الصحابة لما نالوه من شرف الرؤيا. And despite that, they are also considered amongst the Sahaba لما نالوه من شرف الرؤيا, because of the sharaf of ru'ya, sharaf of seeing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they have attained. وثانيهما, and the second one of what? He says tambihan, two things to be aware of. First one is the tarjih, and the second one is يعرف كونه صحابيا. The question here is كيف يعرف الصحابي? How do we ascertain that someone is a sahabi? Number one, بالتواتر, something which is mutawatir. For example, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, whose suhba is mutawatir from the Quran. Zayd's suhba is mutawatir from the Quran. عشرة مبشرة, they might be متواتر معنوي, so متواتر أو الاستفاضة أو الشهرة, or it's become famous. أو بإخبار بعض الصحابة, or one Sahaba mentioning that this person is he has got صحبة. أو بعض ثقات التابعين, or some tabi'in mention that this person had صحبة. So obvious things. أو بإخباره عن نفسه بأنه صحابي, or a person he himself بإخباره عن نفسه بأنه صحابي, that a person he himself declares and claims that he is sahabi. This is accepted إذا كانت دعواه ذلك تدخل تحت الإمكان. Yeah. That if the إذا كانت دعواه, if his claim of suhba is within the realm of possibility. What does that mean? Saying within the realm of possibility.
I'm guessing it means that it can be ascertained that he was alive during the Prophet ﷺ's time, and though it was possible that he could have met him at some point, whether in Makkah or Medina. Or,
for example, if a person living in 500 Hijri claims that he's a Sahabi, then that's not taht al-imkan. Yeah, we're not talking about the jinn here. We're talking about the humans. That's not taht al-imkan. But if a person was to in 100 Hijri, he basically said that I'm a Sahabi, then a Sahabi kullum udul, that is taht al-imkan. But obviously, providing that no one is also contradicting him. Yeah, in 100 Hijri Sahabis, I mean, Abu Tufail is the youngest Sahabi to die, 111 Hijri or something, or 124, I don't remember. So others should also, I mean, if he's lying, then others would testify to that. وقد استشكل هذا الأخير جماعة من حيث إن دعواه ذلك نظير دعوى من قال أنا عدل ويحتاج إلى التأمل. Some people have found this last bit to be problematic min haisu, in the sense that to claim that is the same as claiming that look at me, I am a trustworthy person. ويحتاج إلى تأمل, and this requires further investigation and further thoughts. See what he says. He says, yeah. So he says we just need to kind of look at this a bit more and think about it a bit more. But I think Ibn Hajar Asqalani is of the opinion that this person should be accepted, but as long as it's within the realm of possibility and no one else is rejecting or contradicting that. Number 3, are there any questions before we move?
No.
Okay. أو تنتهي غاية الإسناد إلى التابعي, or number 3 is or the إسناد ends with the تابعي وهو من لقي الصحابي كذلك, and the tabi'i is the one who has met the sahabi in the same manner as in the one who has met the sahabi in iman, with iman, and he and it's صراحة he says that this is the opinion of whoever نافع etc etc. وهذا متعلق باللقي وما ذكر معه إلا قيد الإيمان به فذلك خاص من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهذا هو المختار خلافا لمن اشترى في الطابعي طول okay, we will leave this out for next week inshallah, because there's a bit more discussion here. Is that okay?
Yes.
Quick question. If I've understood correctly, the difference between a mursal and a mawquf is that a mursal, the person says the Prophet ﷺ said or did, etc. Whereas the mawquf, the person, a sahabi is saying something, like his statement or his actions.
Yep. But the thing is that you're confusing two different things. Mursal is a sifat of the isnad. Mawquf is a sifat of the matan. Does that make sense?
No, sorry, can you explain that?
Okay. Mursal is a sifat of the isnad. It is the status of the isnad. It's got nothing to do with the matan. And mawquf is the status of the matan. So if I was to open this up, as far as the status of the isnad is concerned, we have the mu'allaq. Mu'allaq means the isnad is missing from the middle. Mursal means the isnad is missing from the end. Munqati' means the isnad is missing from the middle, or there are two people who are narrating but not consecutively. And then there is mu'dal, means two people missing and they're consecutively missing. These are sifats or hal of the isnad. Marfu, mawquf, and maqtu are status of the matan. Who is this? Who is the sayer?
Yeah, okay, understood.
Does that mean marfu is the Prophet ﷺ is saying, mawquf is the Sahaba is saying, maqtu' is a tabi'i is saying. Now the reason why I say this is because let's take marfu'. Marfu' means qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, irrelevant of whether this isnad was mu'allaq, or the isnad was munqati', or the isnad was mu'dal, or the isnad was mursal, or the isnad was muttasil. We don't comment on the isnad. We're just saying qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The isnad can be any of those five, right? It can even be tadlis. It can even be mursal khafi. So that's why they're two different things. Mursal is a sifat of the sifa of the isnad, and marfu maqtu' is a sifat of the author, the one who sits at the end. And that's why later on there's another terminology is coming, which is the musnad. The musnad is the marfu hadith, which is muttasil. It takes into consideration both the status of the isnad and the status of the matan. Does that make sense?
It does. So I guess, sorry, just follow on question from the quick one. The mawquf is not really a hadith in the technical term, like a hadith being a statement of the Prophet of Islam.
Well, yeah, I mean, depends how wide you define a hadith. Yeah.
Okay.
Because sometimes people define hadith as also the hadith of the Sahabi. Yeah.
I'm guessing they assume that the Sahabi saying or action must have somehow been affected or affected by the Prophet doing something, whether he says so indirectly or not. Maybe is that why they might consider that still a hadith within a broader definition?
No, we've spoken about the marfu' hukman, right? Yeah. The marfu' hukman is the saying or the doing or the opinion of the Sahabi, which we have to assume that it is the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's hadith, right?
Yeah.
Here, this is not what he's talking about. This is talking about when he's purely a Sahabi saying something, doing something out of his own volition. Yeah.
And there are scholars who still consider this under the umbrella of hadith?
Yes.
Okay. Shukran. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Barakallah feek. I will meet you next week, inshallah. Okay.
Assalamu Thank you so much.
And Umar is always at 7 p.m. GMT. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
I just got an email. I got confused, but thank you.
Just a heads up. In a month's time, our UK time will go forward, so we'll let you know ahead of time.
Yeah, please do, inshallah.
How will it affect you? We will go forward, or we will be in BST, British Summer Time. So
our time changes in right before Ramadan, like 2 days before Ramadan or 3 days on Sunday. It's in March. Our time will change. So I think maybe it's the same time when it changes, or maybe there's
no. We change on the last week of on the last Sunday of March.
Yep.
No, we change like in 2 weeks, right before Ramadan. So
you're going forward, Umar. Your time's going forward.
Well, I think so. When we change, right now it's 3. I think it will be 4. So we'll go, an hour forward is when we change.
Okay, so when we change, then it'll align. Essentially, it'll come back to what it is now.
Yep. It will align. But the other question is, would we want to do this during the month of Ramadan?
Up to you, Maulana.
I don't know. Think about it. We'll talk about it next time, inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah. Okay.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.